Well, welcome to another awesome episode of Detections. I'm your host, BSD Bandit, along with Exile, and of course, Understudy is here with us in spirit, digital spirit, that is. Today, we're going to be interviewing, and this gentleman is, we're just going to call him, his name is going to be awesome today. Super awesome. Ali. This guy is just totally amazing. I met him at Nova Hackers face to face. Real cool individual. Also part of DPS, where a lot of us reside. I just can't say any more. I just want to say welcome to Awesome Ali. Welcome to DPS. to
Detection.
From DPS to Detections.
Yeah, come on, BSD. We're on Detections officially now. We're not on the DPS Discord right now.
Yes, we are. Okay, here we go. Let's go. I was super excited. I had Awesome Ali here. Let's go. How you doing this afternoon?
Hey man, I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for that amazing entry speech and introduction. I love it. BSD was one of the first people to welcome me to Nova Hackers and tell me to get on Twitter and see his awesomeness, which I've been following since for a couple of years now. So I go by Ali on Insecurity on Twitter. So part of the DPS fam, part of the Nova Hackers fam, and part of the Detections fam, of course. So thank you, BSC, Exiled, and of course, Understudy in Spirit for having me on.
Digital spirit.
Yeah,
Digital spirit.
What we're gonna do today is we're gonna continue our job series. Well, we have Ali on as a special guest, and so why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, like how you got in the industry. What drew you to it, where you were beforehand, so we can get it kind of a feel for who you are for the listeners.
Cool. So I got into the industry like a lot of people, just messing around with computers and building computers and getting excited about, hacking things together on the hardware side. And that led to a job doing AV work for a Big Ten school at their athletics department. So I got to do some crazy fun stuff, like attending ice hockey games with a $5,000 DSLR camera, rinkside while people are smashing into each other into the rink. And that was kind of the start of different roles that I held, where a lot of times I ended up dealing with emergencies or incidents just by being Johnny on the spot. So, the only technical person in the room when something goes down, whether it's power, whether it's internet or something else, and they're like, well, you're kind of a techie, right? You can fix this. Well, sorry, sir, that's a telephone line. I don't know anything about telephone lines. I work on computers. You can figure it out. Get in there and make this happen, because everything is relying on this. So that's how I got started. I've been in IT now for about 13 years, and I made a transition to information security about 3 years ago. Currently, I work as an incident manager, handling data breaches at colleges and universities and dealing with cybersecurity concerns kind of across the education sector. So that's me in a nutshell.
So what is the incident management? Like what is that?
So incident management is an interesting role. If you kind of see an incident situation as a network of different stakeholders, different techs, different specific groups working on an incident, there's information has to flow back and forth between them, and there's one person who has to be responsible for the incident overall. So I filled that role of being responsible for the incident overall. So being the incident manager in that sense is to manage the incident. It's kind of in the name. So what I really do is work with folks downstream from me who are actually at the computers on the network, checking what's happening on the wire, doing forensic analysis, maybe bringing machines back up, maybe imaging things, and then people upstream to me who are more so the decision makers or stakeholders from different departments and different legal concerns and such, and trying to make that information flow appropriately, to manage expectations appropriately, also to be a shield to those folks who actually just need the time to do the work to actually deal with the incident and investigate, rather than be, under the magnifying glass of someone very high up who needs those answers, damn it, yesterday. So I take the brunt of dealing with the person who's, yelling at people, I need these answers, damn it, yesterday, so that people who really need to do the work can do the work. Beyond that, my concern is to really make a judgment call on what the scope of the incident is. How bad is it, really? How much badness are we dealing with? And what is the business impact of this? And making sure those folks who deal with those kind of things are on board, know that they need to mitigate, and at the same time, tracking what my technical teams are doing in terms of actually dealing with the situation on ground. So that's a lot of words to describe what an incident manager is.
No, it's good, right? Because it's oftentimes a title that we can see out there. Right. And if we have a job description, I mean, we've all seen enough job descriptions to know that they're very hit and miss, and usually miss about actually describing what the job is. So, so thanks for that. Sure. Now, it sounded a bit like that's actually kind of a bit of a leadership role too. Would you say that?
It definitely is. It's a leadership role in the sense of strategy and tactics, and less so a leadership role in terms of people. So you can have people under you, so to speak, in that role. And I definitely have junior incident analysts and managers who do report things up to me. But it's not so much that I'm handling them from an HR perspective of, hey, what time did you show up to work? Oh, you need to take PTO? Why didn't you tell me that a week ago when you knew you needed to take PTO? I don't deal with that kind of stuff. But I do have leadership in the sense of being the point person, walking into the boardrooms and representing various teams, their interests, my team's interests, and trying to always be working towards a place where we can do our jobs better and get some of these higher ups on board, and to understand what their needs are so that I can translate what they really want down to my folks. And so it does end up being a leadership role in that sense. Like, it's a role within the organization where you kind of move across teams and across different subgroups instead of just having that traditional, I have these 10 direct reports and then I report to these 3 or 4 managers or something like that.
So, and just to take you back a little bit, so I just got this thing in my head where I noticed, like you said, when the older gentleman told you, like, years ago, when he said, now you can fix this, just go in there and get it done. And I had this theme music playing in my head, like, dun, 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 dun. Right. And so now that you're in management position, that would be essentially, Awesome Alley. You can say to them, like, hey, this problem needs to be fixed. Now get in there, and you can get in there, you can go fix it. Dun, 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 dun. That would be, like, super awesome.
Exactly. Tables are flipped, right? I'm on the other side. Now I'm yelling at other people to go do that, right?
Yes, but giving them that motivational, like you're just saying, you know what? Yes, you can do this. Mm-hmm. Now get in there and go do it. Dun, 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 dun. And then just like the little...
That is, and actually, I'm glad we're talking about that, because that's somewhere that some of my personal most valuable experiences have come, where I've been able to mentor some folks who are coming into the field, not necessarily younger than me always, just coming in from, a different area of, whatever their background experience was, and they wanted to do IT and such. And they walk in, and if they get that first chance, and if they're walking on my team, and I'm talking more about my IT background compared to where I am right now, it's a lot to take in. Because even if you've read the books and you've done the labs and you've gone to school for it, you walk into any IT shop, everyone does some things differently, right? And there's lots of organizational knowledge that people don't have. And then that first week they're getting hit with, oh, you need to handle this system, you need to handle that system. Oh, no, you don't do that way, because Lucy is going to kill you if you go in there and do it that way. Why the hell did you do it that way? Now it's my problem, right? Now it's on my plate. So it's a lot of it is to let those people understand, yes, it's overwhelming. Yes, it is. But don't worry about it. You're going to absorb 1% today, 5% tomorrow, 10% the day after, and in 3 months' time, you're going to be running this shop, you know? So, and it's really like when people come in and they see a mountain in front of them, is to give them that confidence that, man, it's not that big a deal. It just looks like that from the place you're at right now. But in 3 months' time, you're going to be on top of that thing, you know? Just keep taking a bite out of it every day. So I do love doing that motivational thing, and then seeing those folks come back and taking ownership and running the show and kind of making me non-essential.
That's I think a common thing between all three of us is like we want to help people to make ourselves replaceable.
Absolutely. You know,
Agreed.
It's less stressful then because you got people you can rely on instead of everyone being like, hey, it's got to be BSD who's the guy on the spot to do it. We can't have anyone but him. And I know he's very hard to replace. So, you know, or is it exiled? Or
oh, trust me, I'm very easy to replace. That's why I have a podcast.
We're trying to get to your level of awesomeness today, Ali.
I certainly doubt that. You need to turn down those decibels a little bit to get to my level of awesomeness instead of turning it up.
Hey, the cheer song is playing in my head, just saying, sometimes I want to go where everybody knows my name.
Oh my God. Well, yeah, I am Ali, but I don't sting like a bee, and I don't float like a butterfly. So different kind of Ali.
But the way you just like described everything, I'm just envisioning an episode of like Grey's Anatomy, and everybody just walking all over the place, and you're just giving out the instructions for the new person, like, hey, we run a tight ship here, but everything's going to be okay. You see Lucy over there in the corner? Don't make her upset because then she reports to me, and then there's an issue. You see Tom over here? He's okay. You just got to work with him and massage the data a little bit better. Like, you know, just kind of give him the lowdown.
I think you got a good read on me. That's for sure.
Look at that.
No surprise though.
So now with all that, like how much do you have to like get and understand or dig into the technical stuff? Like, not just the communication. Like, you've talked pretty good on the communication, but obviously there's got to be some technical stuff to this, right?
So the technical stuff is when you're really dealing with the aspects of what is the scope of the incident and doing the high level direction, right? Especially if you have teams which are geographically, spread out, or their area of responsibility is very spread out. It's not the same shop that you go into for your basic detections and then your containment and your remediations and etc. Everyone's doing their own piece, and forensics is somewhere else, etc., etc. You really need to be able to connect those pieces together. So you do need to have an understanding of what is my detection team supposed to be doing, what is my forensics team supposed to be doing, what is my remediation team supposed to be doing. Are they doing containment? Are they doing recovery? Can you tell me how you have your backups set up? And having that understanding of how to set those things up, or at least even if you don't have the specifics of how to set up an Amazon S3 bucket, but understanding the things around it, which are the good practices, you need to be able to have those discussions with SMEs, subject matter experts, in those areas and be able to get those right answers, because you have the big picture control on an incident. You know that the detection team should have caught this. If they didn't catch it, what went wrong? That's a discussion that needs to happen. We need to talk to your security engineers and see, do my folks in the SOC have the visibility they need? Do they have the detections built the way that they need them? That's just the overall incident management process. But when you're actually dealing with an issue, say like a phishing incident or something, and an account gets compromised, you do need to have an understanding that someone says, we reset George's account, so everything is safe now. Everything's good. If you don't know enough, you're going to say, oh, okay, the main concern was that the account was compromised. Someone else has credentials. They reset the credentials so the issue is dealt with. And if that's the level of knowledge you have, you're going to be satisfied with that situation. But if you know more, you're going to be like, well, what happened between the time that the account was compromised and the account credentials were reset? What else was compromised by this, attacker having access to this one account? If this was an email account, did they review all the data that was in there? Did they exfil any of that data that was in there? How bad was it? Do we have logs that tell us what this person from perhaps a different geographical location than we would expect George to log in from do? So you ask questions, you ask questions, and you ask questions, and you have to ask questions of the right people to start building that picture out until you have a full understanding of how bad this really was, what has been done, what needs to be done to address it. And then the final step is, of course, what are we doing so this doesn't happen to us again? So, and now what I end up doing is, since I'm working at a very high level with colleges and universities and schools across the education sector, right? So a lot of times I'm not on ground with these folks. So I really have to communicate hard with them to kind of say, have you thought of this? Have you looked into this area? Have you looked into that area? To really get them thinking in the right direction and then get them going into, hey, have you guys considered multi-factor authentication? That could have maybe helped you mitigate some of this and different issues like that. So that's where the technical knowledge comes in, where understanding the big architectural sense of how security should be set up, or a network should be set up, or a system should be set up, that's really helpful. Having the big picture understanding of, like, if such an incident has occurred, what are all the different ways that it could have gone wrong? So that's the portion where you are really helping to understand the scope of the incident, and then that rolls right into that communication piece. You take it upwards to the, people upward in the stream to you and say, sir, ma'am, general, this is how bad it is. This is what we're doing on the ground. And, sometimes it is bad, and then you just have to deal with it, right? You never get to always have wins, really. But the goal is to heal yourself, heal the organization, and get to a place that you can be more secure going forward. But if you don't ask those technical questions, those leading questions, those strategic questions, you never get there. Because otherwise, the first time someone in IT tells you, we reset George's password so the account compromise issue is resolved, you're going to say yes and move on, which would be the wrong move.
That's a great answer. Now, also on a similar note, like, because you said that you work in the education realm, what sort of unique challenges do you experience in the education realm?
Well, the education sector is really cool because the education sector has a mission, and their mission is to make education accessible to their communities, to people, and to pass knowledge on, right? These are the big mission statements of any education institution. And like we were discussing in our sort of pre-talk before we started recording, is that not every institution does a great job of it, but at its heart, that's what they're supposed to be doing. So the challenge at a lot of these places is that IT's main goal is to make accessibility happen. So, and the reason that is there is because education is supposed to be accessible. Now, we can get into the politics of, is education really accessible today or not? But if you take just community colleges across the nation, in general, they do their best trying to be accessible to their communities, to their students, and anyone who's around them. So naturally, IT is then also focused on that more so than securing and keeping people out, and information flows easily from one part of the network to another part of the network. And the goal is to get these people the information they need, get them exposure to any and every which site they want to go to. Because if someone wants to talk about adult entertainment and they need to go to adult entertainment websites to do a class on, they should be able to. So, and you can't block those sites or anything for concerns that those sites are usually compromised, and there's going to be some drive-by downloads and things like that. IT can't do those things. So this is maybe not the most extreme example of something like this, but this is a very true example that I'm giving you from my experience. So when you have situations like that happening, and you have other instructors and saying like, well, we need to introduce our students to all sorts of tools that are available online. So you can't have trusted lists, you can't have block lists. It creates a very unique challenge for IT because they have to balance the needs of accessibility versus security, and security mostly loses out. What I'm seeing now is that I think everyone is seeing in the last couple of years is this uptick in ransomware, right? Where the whole operation of colleges, universities, school districts comes to a halt. I think it was just 2 weeks ago, maybe not even, because time is such a confusing concept these days in the situation we're living in. The Fairfax County ransomware incident. We're having situations like that occur, and now I think colleges, universities, and schools are really realizing that security is a much bigger deal to them than it used to be. So education sector is really cool because it has a great mission, but IT there is really focused on accessibility more than security. So let's see how that goes, because the bad guys are super interested in the education sector, whether it's for intellectual property or PII or just being able to force them to give out a payout. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that sounds similar to to the medical industry, right? Because the accessibility is a big thing, especially like rapid.
Very rapid in the medical industry, and obviously lives are on the line, and people's health being is on the line there. So the sense of how much time someone has is very limited in for hospitals and clinics compared to schools and universities. If your class suddenly loses access to your computers and you can't run PowerPoint, you're going to have a lot of upset instructors on your hand. But likely no one is going to be at risk of dying or not getting the kind of medication they need right away. So some of the things that I see there is that we just had the recent incident in Dusseldorf where a patient died, and they're considering that as a consequence of the hospital being compromised and having a ransomware attack on it, and that patient not being able to get services at that hospital and having to be run to a hospital. I think it was like 20 miles away or something like that.
Yeah, it was around 20 miles away, and again, like I said, that's a perfect segue as well too. Far as like and this is just everywhere, but of course we're talking about medical and healthcare in this case. What do you think could have been done to like help prevent this situation from occurring in the first place? Could there have been better policies? What do you think could have been done to help prevent this?
From my understanding, in hospitals, really, IT is fighting against the needs for doctors to have information immediately on hand, everywhere, on their, they still have pagers, by the way. So I was going to say pagers when I was like, I'm not dating myself. They really do still have pagers.
Oh, I believe it. I definitely believe that.
Right. So on their pagers, on their personal cell phones, work cell phones, on tablets that are sitting around, on different what is it called, tech stations that they have placed within examination rooms. So that need is so extreme that securing that information is really, really difficult. But if we could have done some of those things in this situation so that the patient information systems were not compromised, and if they were compromised, if we had a backup plan, like at this point, medical institutions have to presume, just like power outages, right? Medical institutions have planned for power outages forever now. That if there's a power outage, what do we do?
Right.
They have generators and those kind of situations. They need to plan for something like that. Like, okay, we've gone an information only way of managing, digital information only way of managing our hospitals and our medical practices. If they go down, what do we do?
Right.
So, where the education sector has learned to do some of these things is because they have not had to worry so much about being resilient to attacks. So if the internet goes down, if the power goes down or something like that, it's a bad day, and most times instructors are expected to carry on regardless.
Right.
Right. So they usually have a plan that if I lose my PowerPoint, if I lose access to the internet, if the power goes out, how am I going to conduct instruction? Right.
Right.
I think some of that kind of thinking could be used in the medical sphere as well. Now, obviously, there's a limit to it, right? Like, if a patient needs a test, a CT scan or something like that, and that this CT scan machine or the MRI machine or something is compromised and dead, and that's the thing that was going to help them survive a whatever ailment or an accident or a situation. There is no non-digital, non-powered, device-powered kind of equivalent to that.
Right.
So there's only so much you can do. But I do think that as a policy, as a strategy, hospitals are going to have to look at this, is that tomorrow we get hit with ransomware. Right. Tomorrow all our patient information systems go down. Do we have offline backups that we can bring up and start getting some of that information immediately while our containment teams and such are working on getting the live system, the supposedly live system back up?
Right.
But that having those offline systems up and running, ready to run, disconnected from your main network, oh my God, I think we need that badly right now.
Gotcha. And here's the thing, and also too, with everything that's going on now, especially now, everything that's going on now with like COVID, and then they're trying to get like the vaccine together. Everybody's just pretty much just trying to figure everything out. And then you got situations where, and obviously with this situation, unfortunately, the young lady lost her life. And rest in peace and condolences to her family. But now it's like, we need to. How do we future-proof this? I know what we have like now and what needs to be done to correct the current situation. What do you think could be done to like future-proof it? Like within the medical field. And what I mean by that, as far as like from a technical standpoint, technology-wise.
Technology-wise, I mean, I really think that we need to start getting into maybe segmented networks where you can have that internet-like capability, right? But it really is cut off from the larger internet. Like truly, when we talk about air gapping, not the fake air gapping we see everywhere, but a true air gapping that this is the hospital network and it only exists within the physical bounds of this hospital and not, beyond. There isn't suddenly someone bringing in their Raspberry Pi and connecting into that one and connecting off to the greater network just to throw back on, the incident at NASA. But,
Hey, these are facts.
These are facts, exactly. I mean, this stuff happens, right? So I think that is going to take taking a little bit of a hit on that accessibility part of what that CIA triad is, right? Which is also part of our security mission. It's taking a little bit of balancing towards the security and the confidentiality and the integrity portion and letting that accessibility portion take a step back a little bit. But I think, my apologies to all the medical professionals and the medical security professionals listening to this, because I just have a high level understanding of, the struggles that you're facing. But I imagine we need something revolutionary in the way we do technology in the medical field so that we can be more resilient. So having a truly air-gapped network, which isn't, has this patient information system on it, which has the device IoT network on it and such, making it easy for information to be securely provided to doctors and nurses and medical practitioners. If and we know the doctor is going to look up that information on his or her phone, right?
Yeah.
At this point, stop fighting it. Like how many times we're going to cry about they don't understand security. They're accessing all the sensitive information on their phones, and they go on Instagram and TikTok right after. Whatever. Do you really want your doctor to be concerned about, oh, am I using proper procedures to handle this PII when she is supposed to be diagnosing a heart attack on your dad or something?
I wouldn't.
No. So, me, you, Exiled, our family in the hacker community and this, general defense, offense, I don't care what hat you wear, our mission is the damn same, right?
Yes.
We need to understand this is the culture. We need these medical professionals to have the information they need in any which way they want it to do their jobs. And whether it's the best practice or not, then let's figure out how to make it a good way of doing it. Is there an app that we can build and rigorously test so that they can have a PII on their phones and it is kind of, what's the word? Contained within the bounds of that app. And, it's not, Instagram isn't also seeing, oh, the doctor is searching for stethoscopes on this app, so now I'm going to give stethoscopes advertisements or whatever, so, try to figure those things out. Those are challenges, but I think what's great about the hacker community is that it's always rising to the challenge, right?
Right.
So if we get over some of the arrogance that is also within our community about things should be this way and accept the fact that their needs are greater than ours, and we should try and meet them where they are, I think we could do some innovative stuff.
Yeah, I'm laughing you said that because it reminded me of something that I just heard recently.
Oh, yeah?
Saying that what we do in information security, cybersecurity, is we are effectively just consultants.
Agreed.
We
yes.
don't actually own the risk to the business
Right.
and make the decisions. We just help to consult and provide the relevant information to the business leaders that do actually own the risk.
Yes.
We're pretty much, I would say we're pretty much like, instead of consultants, let's call ourselves a conscience.
Oh,
I like it.
there you go. We're the Jiminy Cricket.
Like, I'm your conscience. I wouldn't click on that ransomware if I were you. I'm your conscience. I wouldn't accept that risk if I were you.
No.
We can redo the Eminem Dr. Dre Guilty Conscience song, but just for cybersecurity.
Really
That would be awesome. Anyone out there, any video editors or whatnot, if you want to remake this Guilty Conscience song into an IT thing, get the Weird Al going and everything else.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So it's interesting that you brought up mobile because that also seems similar to the education space, right? Especially with the COVID lockdown situation and like Chromebooks and tablets being issued, and the university and postgraduate aspect has been doing more of a mobile thing, right? So
Right.
I mean that same mobile push is there also. And what was it? Our last episode that we aired, we talked about the prediction of mobile and browsers being the new forefront anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Exactly. Exactly. And I think again right now what's the biggest challenge that we're facing is again accessibility to that information, right? It keeps on coming back to that, and a lot of us are usually more concerned with confidentiality and integrity and less so with accessibility, because accessibility tends to be the bane of existence of the other two. But and then we're finding out things like Zoom bombing and whatever, and they're funny, but they're also extremely disruptive, right?
Yes.
And a teacher or a parent who's already managing everything else that's going on with COVID, having to deal with that nonsense while they're teaching class could be the last straw for some of them, right? It's like,
I mean, but at the same time, then we have Zoom bombing that's also being used for political means, right? Because we recently had, what was it, some, I can't remember which court it was, but court was holding some Zoom meetings to discuss stuff, and because it was political in nature, a bunch of people Zoom bombed it and let their voice be heard.
Right, exactly. So hacktivism.
Or even worse, and this is something that I think about as well too, with everybody being constantly online and constantly on video, whether it's education or not, I worry about the fact that how strong is our facial recognition security How strong is that? How strong is our deep fake? You see them getting that?
Yeah, so I was saying the facial recognition is interesting because the state of Oregon just passed the most restrictive legislation on bans of facial recognition used within the state, not just from government agencies, but private corporations also. So when we bring facial recognition, we've got to think about not just the technology aspects of it, but also the policy and legislation around it from a state, city, county, and federal level.
So that's going to be very, very interesting, right? Now, you have that legislation there, but you do have for, if someone is, I don't know, doing a man-in-the-middle attack with those services and he or she is sitting somewhere else, right? And using that kind of information, or someone legitimately gets it in the state of Wisconsin instead of, your state or something like that, and those laws don't apply. What happens? Is it like GDPR then, where as long as you're a resident of Oregon, Portland, then they have to comply, or what? It's going to be very interesting. I think what's going to happen is what we have found, especially with things like we're getting real into politics now. Things like the Patriot Act and stuff out there that end up taking precedence over privacy concerns, over, personal, I don't want to say freedoms, because I don't want to say stuff like that's very, that's just a talking point, but let's just say privacy concerns, right?
Yeah.
So I think that facial recognition and things, those are such powerful tools for those folks who are working in that sphere of society where they're relying on things like the Patriot Act to, in the best sense, we can say protect people, right? It's now can be interpreted in many ways. I'm sure there are abuses of it too. So, and that's what we're concerned about, is that when things are abused, and facial recognition, the way it's come into our society right now, has come in as a shock, and anytime it's been discovered, it's been like, wait a minute, you guys were doing what?
Yep.
Right? Exactly. So it's never been, it's been surrounded by a lot of darkness, a lot of suspicion, and I think rightfully so, because if it was all above board, we would have known it.
And our consciences wouldn't be going off the ringer.
Exactly. But unfortunately, around this technology, they're going off all the damn time because there is real concern. And this deepfake thing, my God, man, we were as a people so good at character assassination long before this. Now we got deepfakes.
Yep.
Forget about it.
I mean, every day we go forward, it's more and more like the science fiction authors and creators of the past in the cyberpunk realm.
Yes.
Were they sending warnings, or were they actually like prophetic visionaries of what was about to come? Because each day it's like, this is scary. Like the whole Michael Scott from The Office just like bowing his head saying, "Don't." Don't, just stop. Like, let's not continue this path.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I think they were visionaries. All the folks that came before us, and all the white papers and the research that they've done, way back when, I think it was all what they saw coming in the future. Now, of course, not. I don't think they predict anything like a COVID or anything else. I'm just looking at far as like how the technology, the security of the technology, and how it can be abused, and what how detrimental it could be if this specific, like, say, protocol or application was abused. I do think they were visionaries from that standpoint, because I don't think they were just building this with no security thought in the world. I think they were building these technologies, these protocols, and saying, hey, I know the usage of this, but what if somebody came in, because remember, good cannot exist without evil. I'll just put it that way. They offset each other. So you got to say, okay, this is good. This protocol here provides convenience, but with that convenience comes abuse.
Right.
And
Right.
now the key is trying to figure out what could a person abuse with our convenient protocol or application or mobile device.
Mm-hmm.
So
Without a
I think they
doubt.
were
I mean,
visionaries.
they were visionaries, and there's such a long history of scientists dealing with that conundrum. And nitroglycerin was I forget who is on paper having discovered it, but before that person, someone else had discovered it and decided not to publish and share the knowledge with the world, because while it was a great discovery, they predicted that it would be used for terrible, terrible things. And they were right. They were right. No, but then whoever this, I'm forgetting my history here, my scientific history, but the gentleman who actually then ended up posting and publishing the piece of knowledge brought that into the world. So, and that starts that whole other discussion of, well, I just created or not created or discovered this piece of knowledge. What you do with it is on you, and there's a lot of deep moral issues with that as well. But yeah, I think especially writers, sci-fi writers or any kind of writers, they are at their hearts students of human nature. Mm-hmm. So when they are writing the story, the way they make it relevant, the way they make it heart-wrenching or for you to care about it is for you to be able to empathize with those people or see yourself in those people, right? So even if they're creating a vision of a world which is so different from ours and maybe not something, we're really living it right now, but maybe 20 years ago we weren't living some of these crazy sci-fi things that were just in books that had been written 30 years before us or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think when those folks, those writers imagined those amazing worlds, fantastical worlds, they were still populating them with people like us.
Right.
And they knew that the best of us, what they would do, and they knew what the worst of us would do with that technology. And I think that's what we're seeing.
Oh, yeah. And every day I wake up, I think about this conversation that I had, and this is when I was living in like Chesapeake, Virginia. And I went to, I think it was like a Linux user group meeting out in Virginia Beach. Mm-hmm. And I remember this guy saying this a long time ago. He said, the year, well, he said 2022 will be the year of wireless cities and robots. It's time. I remember his exact words. He said, it's time. And this was back in 2008 now. He's talking like this.
Wow.
And, like thinking back and I'm like, man, he was really onto something. Didn't know too much about him. He was always just showing up at the meetings and he always sit in the corner and type on a laptop. He wouldn't really talk much. But when he did talk, he would say things like that. And yeah.
So they're coming true. Yeah, they're definitely coming true.
Yeah, we're living it, Yeah.
And if any listeners are still interested, it is still reasonable to become a Luddite and just reject it all.
We support you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're afraid of the things we love.
Yes, we support you.
So what's wild is that I was seriously considering leaving, the technology field altogether before I really dipped my feet in security. Before that, I had reached one limit with dealing with all the problems that technology brings and trying to fix a printer for the 100th time, right? So I think we all have been at the point where we're just like, screw this. I'm going out in the woods, making my own cabin and living away from all of this. And I've definitely very seriously been there. And if it weren't for trying to deal with a denial of service attack on a Xerox copier of all things, that kind of got me thinking. I was like, what the hell is this about?
Yeah.
What was the motivation behind this? What's going on? And I still remember just that silly little thing got my mind going in this direction. And I think that happened about 5 years ago now. And now I'm in security doing, some crazy, crazy stuff. But But I was there, man. I was there when I got called in to deal with this Xerox copier for the umpteenth time, but this time it was because of a denial of service attack. I was like, oh, well, this one at least is different.
It's funny. It's funny because like I see, I hear what you're saying as well.
Mhm.
I never thought I would be in security, if that makes sense. I always thought I would just be like a Unix graybeard. Eventually becoming like a Unix graybeard, because I don't know. It was just something about those guys and gals that were mysterious. It was always something mysterious about a Unix person.
Like a Unix Wizards Club or something like that?
Yeah, wizard monks, like the Pearl monks.
Pearl monks, I love it.
yeah.
It's very true. They speak in tongues.
And every Unix person that I ever really met, it was always something mysterious about them. And of course, they thought me with a smile on my face every day with no coffee was mysterious to them too. So we're
And it
we're
still
good on that one.
is. It
So-
still is.
It is, yeah. It probably is a mystery for a lot of folks. But the secret is no secret. It's just mentals.
It's just
That's all
mental.
it is.
I agree. It is mental.
And of course, if understudy was here, he was like, "Yeah, you're just stuck in a mentally disordered state of happiness."
Oh,
That's exactly
goodness
what he would
gracious.
say.
Yep.
But I never really thought about like security like that. And then one day it just kind of clicked. It's just like, oh man, what if I could do this? It was just a what if I could.
Right.
And then that's
Right.
what kind of like fed the monster. It fed the
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even calling it
Curiosity.
the monster. It fed the unicorn. And then I just took it
Now,
to the next level.
did you have caffeine today? You're being a little extra right now, so I'm just wondering.
No, did I have caffeine? I did have a little caffeine.
See, I know,
Yeah, I had a
I
little
know
caffeine.
where your level is at, where your mental
Yeah.
mind is at. So
Well, yeah. So yeah.
The
I don't know why I'm
unicorn.
thinking about unicorns. I don't know, but anyway.
Because you're a beautiful one.
Oh.
BSD.
there you go, your
Well,
beautiful
thank you.
unicorn.
Yeah.
So, I mean, hey, we all are chasing our unicorn, and I guess we met one.
There
Yep.
you go. Right. Shout out to Black Rifle Coffee. Thank you.
Wow.
You know, if we do a video and you do another shout out to Black Rifle Coffee, you're gonna have to rock the Article 13 clothing.
Oh, you know what? Uh-oh. Hey, it could happen.
So, since
If
we're-
people can see my face right now, I'm like, it could happen.
If it could happen, yeah. He's got a gleam in his eye, and his smile is
It's like,
shining.
Gling, and the awesome Ollie music is playing in the background. Dun, dun, dun. Oh yeah! Now get in
All right.
there and put that clothing on.
Now, since we're talking about our origin stories, there is something that I wanted to share with listeners, especially because I
Yeah.
know we have a lot of people on the in the DPS crowd that listen to this podcast, and a lot of them are trying to break into the industry or are in more so junior roles. Just trying to see. One thing that I want to talk about how I ended up being in an incident manager role, right? My pathway is somewhat not traditional, but then what I've learned is most people's path is not traditional. So, and that should tell you something. It should tell you that you can be in a non-traditional path and be in IT or security or whatever. And one thing I want to encourage everyone listening, especially if you are being pulled in a direction which is not what you were expecting would happen or you would get into. Say if you're being handed a project that's not specifically your area, but if you take it on and perform, you're going to learn something from it that is going to become applicable later. You might say, but I just want to be a web developer. Why the hell do I need to deal with this, project on ensuring continuity of operations, right? So it doesn't make sense in that moment. But what you'll see is as you get into more senior leadership roles, is having that flexibility of experience, having that latitude of experience gives you that flexibility of decision making because you know how those things impact all those different areas. So feel free and don't be afraid to engage in different experiences professionally. It's going to feed into something later in life 100%. I also, what I didn't talk about at all today, have done a lot in geographic information systems. That's where a lot of my analytical knowledge comes from. I'm not applying the same exact principles, specific principles, to a lot of the things that I do, but a lot of analytical process was learned while doing that, you know. So you never know. So feel free and don't be afraid to do things that are different than what you expected you would be doing.
Those are some good words. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Now we're going to jump into the next piece that I know you as a listener are familiar with, Ali, the detection portion.
Mm-hmm.
So, as is customary for guests, we throw them into the fire and let them come up with a detection for the episode. So, ball's in your court.
Okay. So one thing we wanted to talk about from an incident management point of view or an incident response point of view is that what happens if the bad guys are in your network, they're on your comms? How do you deal with that situation? So to go with the incident response lifecycle, what is the first step? Preparation. Which is part of the things that I used to do as an IT person. I maintained our emergency kit, which had cell phones, which had hotspots and such, and things, and an entire network you could set up, which was completely separate from the organization's network to get those comms up and running. Why did we have that set up? Honestly, we had it set up for a natural disaster response situation. But it applies to a malicious actor situation as well. Because you can have, if you're prepared to take your comms out of band, as some people say, meaning that you're not using your organization's email, your organization's cell phone, or your organization's VoIP phones. Great. By the way, VoIP phones, do distrust them because don't just presume, well, I was just using a cell phone, the phone at my desk. It's not connected to the network. A lot of those phones are now connected to the network. So having out-of-band communications is excellent. When you're dealing with an incident where you have a known compromise, presume your communications are compromised and go to your backup communication system. If that's your personal cell phones and your personal email, that is fine because it is safer to not have that information get listened in by the bad actor or the malicious actor than to make the mistake of saying, oh no, but I'm only authorized to use my government provided or organizational provided cell phone for this business. Go out of band to make sure communication is safe. Get your forensics people and detection people to sanitize comms before you start trusting them again. So that's some of my advice as far as the detection section go. So prepare for it. And if you're not prepared for it, use what you have on hand. But distrust what you normally use.
That's some good advice there. Now, is there anything like maybe a behavior or something that someone may be able to recognize or perceive that may show that they're compromised rather than just assuming that they are?
I mean, some of the things is like, all right, if you came up with some kind of a strategy of what to shut down or what to extract, where to extract information or what system to bring up, and suddenly that system is showing what is it called, indications of compromise or something like that, and it was just fine moments before. That's a good indication that you have been popped, that your communication has been popped, right? Yeah. The other thing with ransomware incidents right now, the new thing that's happening, newish, I should say, is just that data is being exfiltrated and then put on the malicious actor's website as a threat, right? But, hey, folks, here's a screen capture of what we might have on you. If you don't pay the ransom, we're going to let this all out. Discussing that you're not going to pay the ransom on comms that are compromised is a really bad idea, because then you're going to have all that data exposed. So going back and forth, because here's the thing, how can those folks put pressure on you, right? If they gave you 48 hours before, it's just like those hostage movies, right? You know, they give you like, well, you had 12 hours, but you didn't listen to me. Now you only have 5 hours, and I'm shooting one person every hour on the hour. You know, dramatic, right? But some of these situations, it's data, not people. It's, you know, PII and, you know, not lives. But you don't want to piss off these people because egos are involved. Their paycheck is involved too. So if you start seeing them act as if it's a response to what you're doing, you know you're popped, right? So, and sometimes they'll tell you. These days, I've seen communications, and some of these are in the textbooks and such that we're familiar with, but I've seen active communications where the bad guy just starts typing up forum posts, and they're like, I can hear you. I just heard you say this, and guess what? It's not 2 million anymore. It is 5 million now. You know.
Or they could just extract the audio altogether and post it on their actor's website.
Yeah.
And then put like a big emoji that says this.
I got you. So, and and I mean.
Now, mind you, I don't do that. Even though I'm wearing the offensive hat, I don't do that. Just a disclaimer here on Detections.
He's too nice. He wouldn't do it that way.
No. I don't want you don't want any of the listeners to say, "But damn, that sounds so realistic." Did he actually?
It may or may not have been seen in the wild.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, awesome. Well, thanks for coming on today, Ellie. We greatly appreciate it.
Yes.
It's great fun to, talk to good friends. I have a lot of affection and respect for both of you, so I appreciate being on here. And understudy in spirit, thank you for being here.
I'm glad he's getting some time away.
No, I really wish understudy was here because he can't handle compliments. So he gets he gets grumpier and grumpier the more you compliment him. And the wonderful thing is that I can compliment him for days on end because it's all true. So I don't even have to fake it, and then he just gets grumbly, and then he starts actually blushing and going like, "Oh, this is actually kind of nice."
Yeah, because he'll be like, "Ollie, don't, Ollie.
But please go on."
Dude, no, like, Ollie, no.
Stop. But could you repeat that again? Because I want to put that on Twitter.
Yes. Don't.
No. But I'm making notes, so just
You'd be like, "Dude, no."
But generally, folks, you've been very welcoming. Detection is a wonderful podcast, and thank you for having me.
Yes, of course.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have further conversations like we do. Who knows? Could be tomorrow, Monday. Never know. It just kind of happens.
Exactly.
But thank everyone for listening. So as the smoke clears and we start to get normalized in life, remember to go forth and find badness.
Ow! Yep.